This right here is a really dangerous threat. Boo with Jiren absorbed. Not only would he possess Jiren's unbelievable physical strength, so much so in fact that he's stronger than almost every god of destruction, but you're adding that strength on top of Boo's existing strength, his insane regenerative ability, and his unbelievable magic, which is some of the strongest in the Dragon Ball universe. Plus, seeing how he's already absorbed Jiren, who's to say he wouldn't absorb the other Pride Troopers too? Imagine the unbelievable strength of Jiren, the ability to increase his speed significantly using Dispo's abilities, gain access to a God of Destruction transformation like what Toppo has, also giving him access to the Hakai, as well as all the other abilities of every other Pride Trooper that we saw in the Tournament of Power, and possibly more powers of other Pride Troopers across Universe 11. With all those people absorbed, no God of Destruction would be able to take this down. Literally, the only option is just to call Zeno at this point, cause no regular Hakai would work on this thing. Well, this is a fusion I never thought people would come up with. The fusion of Frieza and Jiren. The thing that I actually find quite terrifying about this is, based on its appearance, it's technically only in Frieza's final form, which is already incredibly strong. And since the Potara is person times person, that would take final form Frieza's power and multiply it by Jiren's power, which is already insane. But then he could stack Jiren's Limit Breaker state with the Golden form. Just to put in perspective how powerful the Golden form is, final form Frieza is comparable to base Goku. Yet the Golden form makes Frieza comparable to Super Saiyan Blue Goku. So you take this unbelievable amount of power with just the final form and regular Jiren combined, then give the power increase of Jiren's Limit Breaker form, and give a Super Saiyan Blue type power increase on top of that. If you genuinely don't think this fusion is near the level of an angel, you're just lying to yourself. Well, this is overpowered. The fusion of Gogeta and Vegito. Firstly, I'm wondering how they would even fuse in the first place. Would they do the fusion dance a second time, or would they just put on a second set of earrings? Not to mention the fact that you would need 2 Gokus and 2 Vegetas, and each end to fuse into each fusion, and then have those 2 fusions fuse either using the dance or the earrings. But let's get on to how strong this fusion would actually be. You would take base Vegito's full power and multiply it by base Gogeta's full power. And that's how strong this fusion's base form would be. And it might even be stronger than simply just fusing the 2 together. As stated in the Broly movie, not only is it their 2 powers combined, but it's significantly amplified as well. As well as them being able to stack all the Super Saiyan forms on top of it. Which I doubt they'd really have to use. This fusion with only Super Saiyan would probably be strong enough to compete with angels. God forbid the God forms. The fusion of Majin Buu and Merge Zamasu. What makes this fusion so terrifying is that Merge Zamasu still has the potential to grow in power like Goku Black did, but now you're granting him access to Majin-level regeneration. Literally, one of the only weaknesses Merge Zamasu had was his regular body was mortal, but his essence was immortal. So it caused an imbalance which led to his body destabilizing. But now he really doesn't need to worry about that because now he has the regeneration level of a Majin. Plus, knowing how smart Zamasu was, seeing how he was able to exploit Goku's body, he would likely be really intelligent when it came to absorbing more people. Now, I know he wouldn't absorb mortals, he would hate that. I instead think he would go around absorbing gods of destruction. Think about it, they wouldn't be able to Hakai him, so he could simply go to each universe, and instead of killing the Kaioshin and God of Destruction, he could go around absorbing them all, becoming almost unstoppable. Until Zeno showed. Well, this is a terrifying thought. The fusion of Dabi and Hisoka. Firstly, I can already see the simps running. 2 of the most psychotic characters in both My Hero and Hunter x Hunter. Yet they for some reason have the most simps. But let's get back to the actual character. Firstly, as you can see in his hands, he'd be able to use flaming throwing cards. And he'd probably just coat the cards in Nen so the cards themselves don't burn, but they could still strike their opponents the same way they normally would. Except with the added touch of them obviously being on fire. But here's another terrifying thought. He wraps you in the bungee gum, and then ignite that bungee gum. Basically working like a flaming lasso. Plus, when you take Hisoka's Nen abilities, and combine it with how deadly Dabi's fire is, you've got a really terrifying opponent on your hands. This is actually a pretty badass fusion. The fusion of Momo from My Hero Academia and Urza from Fairy Tail. Not only would this fusion possess all of Urza's weapons and armor, but if those weapons or armor get broken beyond repair, this fusion could simply use Momo's quirk to create a replica of the suit of armor or the weapon to continue the fight without having to take a break. Not to mention, with how much Urza loves food, there's definitely going to be plenty of material to be able to use Momo's quirk. Plus, this fusion would be incredibly smart. This fusion would possess Urza's combat knowledge and strategic mind, and Momo's wide list of knowledge that she acquired so she could use her quirk effectively. Meaning, she's not just insanely powerful in combat, she would also be an incredibly dangerous tactician. So whether she's the one actually doing the attacking, or creating strategies for her teammates, she'd be an absolute force of nature. Now before I continue, I do not want to hear any Sakura slander in my comments. Now onto the actual fusion. This is the fusion of Bulma and Sakura, which is actually a really powerful combination. With all the powers of Sakura, that would allow Bulma to fight alongside the Z Fighters in battle. Now I know Sakura's strength won't make her at the level of the human Z Fighters, but you back up the fact that it has Bulma's intelligence and the incredibly powerful 100 Healings Jutsu. Also, I know in the world of Naruto and in Dragon Ball, Ki and Chakra are not the same things, because one allows you to manipulate elements and the other lets you shoot energy blasts. But in the real world, they're both just life force. So imagine if this fusion was able to teach every one of the Z Fighters the 100 Healings Jutsu. Not only would that allow the humans to become somewhat relevant again, it would make the Saiyans unbelievably powerful. The ability to heal mid-battle would be a perfect fantasy for Goku and Vegeta. This is a pretty interesting combination. Spider-Man and Bakugo. You're pretty much just getting Spider-Man, who now has the ability to blow up entire buildings with a single hand. Not to mention, the terrifying part about this fusion is that you have the scary level of power that Spider-Man possesses, with the short temper of Bakugo. Not only would this fusion be able to punch people's heads off if they wanted to, but they are a literal ticking time bomb. You say one wrong thing or he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, the villains will basically be begging to go to prison instead of fighting this fusion. Not to mention, you take Bakugo's armor-piercing shot, or AP shot, and combine it with how nimble he would be with the spider sense, and even people with insane durability would go down in like 1 or 2 hits. This fusion here is more dangerous than I could truly put into words. The fusion of Goku Black and Dragon Ball Super Broly. Goku Black, over the course of only a couple battles, went from only being at the level of Super Saiyan 2 Goku, to being able to basically one-shot Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta with little effort. Not to mention his ability to exploit the Zenkai boost ability of the Saiyans. And Broly, he's just an entirely different kind of monster. He started off the movie being so weak, base Vegeta treated him like a warm-up. And by the end of the movie, Goku and Vegeta had to fuse into Gogeta just to be able to take him down. This is an underestimation, but this fusion would likely be able to grow millions of times stronger in seconds. With Broly's incredible potential, Goku Black's intelligence, and the ability to exploit Saiyan power, you likely only have 1 or 2 chances of winning this fight. You take 1 second too long and they'll surpass you 100 times over. You should just nickname this fusion the God Killer. The fusion of Dragon Ball Z Broly and Jiren. Firstly, before Jiren even uses his Limit Breaker form that he used against Master Ultra Instinct Goku in the Tournament of Power, he was already stated to be stronger than his God of Destruction. Meaning that while in that Limit Breaker state, he could likely take on a lot of the weaker destroyers on his own. But now you multiply his power by Dragon Ball Z Broly's base power for the baseline of this Potara fusion, then allow him to stack the Limit Breaker power increase and the multiplier of Legendary Super Saiyan. And not just that, all of that power is back behind Broly's devil-like mentality. Now, I know this fusion wouldn't be at the level of the Angels, but the Gods of Destruction, on the other hand, are gonna get slaughtered. Never thought there'd be a fusion of these 2 characters, but surprisingly, they're actually quite powerful together. The fusion of future Trunks and Itachi. Firstly, they can amplify their power using the Super Saiyan forms, amplifying speed, strength, durability, and senses, as well as being able to use the incredibly powerful Genjutsu abilities of Itachi. But the real dangerous things come in when we start talking about their special swords. Specifically, the Tosca Blade and the Sword of Hope. Sword of Hope's pretty easy to talk about. It works the same as a Spirit Bomb, and causes more damage the more evil the target is. And the Tosca Blade, hopefully I pronounced it correctly, has two primary abilities. If the Tosca Blade stabs a target, firstly, it can seal it away, and if the target is a living entity, it puts that entity under an endless genjutsu. Imagine Itachi Susano dual-wielding the Sword of Hope and Tosca Blade. If you got stabbed by either of them, death is the least of your worries. The infamous Broly vs. Jiren debate. This entire battle depends on two factors: the intensity of the characters and the duration of the fight. If Jiren goes all out from the beginning, then he destroys Broly, even when he's in his legendary Super Saiyan state. Goku said Broly was comparable to a destroyer. Meanwhile, Jiren has been confirmed to be stronger than his destroyer. So if they both went full power from the start, Jiren dominates. But if Jiren fought the same way he did in the Tournament of Power, and only used the amount of energy needed to simply just be ahead of his opponent instead of trying to beat them, then by the time Jiren realizes Broly is closing in on him, it would already be too late to deal a finishing blow. They'd get so close in power that Jiren couldn't simply one-shot him. Until eventually Broly grows in power to the point where Jiren's attacks won't even tickle him. So let me reiterate. All out from the start, Jiren wins. Drawn out battle, Broly wins. This is a seriously dangerous fusion. The fusion of Madara and Hashirama. Even now, with the current events of Boruto, both Hashirama and Madara are still some of the strongest characters we've ever been introduced to in the Naruto franchise. Especially if we factor in Ten Tails Madara. So this fusion would be an absolute monster even with the current events of Boruto. Imagine Hashirama's wood golem or even his Buddha statue enhanced by Madara's Susanoo. Or imagine stacking the power increase of being a Ten-tailed Jinchuriki with the power increase of Hashirama's Sage Mode. Plus, they would not only possess Limbo clones, but also Hashirama's Wood-style clones. Honestly, if we fuse these characters by multiplying their power together, similar to how fusion in Dragon Ball works, I doubt even Baryon Mode Naruto could beat this fusion at its full potential. Oh, good God. The fusion of Kaneki and Kakashi. I think what truly makes this fusion so deadly is because it would be just as skilled, versatile, and intelligent as Kakashi is, while still being unpredictable, relentless, and bloodthirsty as Kaneki. Not to mention, due to Kaneki's healing factor, there is the possibility this fusion could constantly restore their chakra reserves, since in most cases with people that can heal themselves, it's also capable of restoring their energy. Meaning there is a possibility they could spam Kakashi's most powerful jutsus non-stop. But could you imagine how terrifying a genjutsu would be if it were created by someone with the mentality of a ghoul? Even if you managed to break out of the genjutsu, you'd be so psychologically fucked up by the time you came out of it that you wouldn't be able to fight even if you did escape it. Well, this is terrifying. Majin Buu with Dragon Ball Z Broly absorbed. Now, I don't think this fusion will be able to take down Jiren, far from it, but if this was Dragon Ball Super Broly, that is a different story. If it was Majin Buu absorbing Dragon Ball Super Broly, then yeah, Jiren is going to be in this exact same situation. Imagine the combined psychotic mentality of Buu and Broly. That is honestly terrifying. This fusion would possess the incredible regenerative ability of Majin Buu, on top of the constant increasing power of Broly, which is a horrifying combination for one person to have. Oh, good God. The fusion of Omega Shenron and Dragon Ball Z Broly. Firstly, he would be just as emotionally stable as Omega Shenron, while still possessing the incredible power and bloodlust of Dragon Ball Z Broly. Now, there is a possibility that Goku and Vegeta currently could still deal with this fusion on a physical level. But this fusion is a threat to the multiverse simply by existing. Omega Shenron in GT was stated that his negative energy that was constantly pouring out of his body was decaying and destroying the universe, simply by him existing. And you combine that with the ever-increasing and explosive power of Broly, and this fusion could destabilize the multiverse by simply existing. I'd be terrified if this was Super Broly because the entire multiverse would be destroyed in hours if he wasn't dealt with. This is going to be a longer video because I'm going to be covering two fusions in one. The fusion of Bakugo and Miles Morales, and Deku with Peter Parker. The first one we'll be covering is Bakugo and Miles Morales, because he's definitely going to be the one that takes the most time to talk about. Firstly, he would possess every one of the standard Spider-Man based powers that Miles Morales has, as well as possessing his control over bioelectricity, his ability to turn invisible, and his spider sense, which in some instances are actually stronger than Peter Parker's spider sense. But then you combine all of that with Bakugo's explosions and his aggressive personality. Meaning, if he wanted to, he can make an electrified explosion while invisible so you have no idea where he's going to hit you. Therefore, you won't be able to properly defend against it, if at all. Plus, with how strong most versions of Spider-Man are, giving Miles Morales the aggressive personality of Bakugo is simply asking for trouble, since most versions of Spider-Man could punch your head off if they wanted to. Now let's move on to Deku fused with Peter Parker. Now, when I'm reviewing this character, it is going to have some spoilers about things that haven't happened to Deku yet in the anime. So, be warned. Not only would this fusion possess all of standard Spider-Man's capabilities, but they would also be significantly amped since the stockpiling ability of One For All tends to amplify existing powers if One For All is given to someone who already possesses a power. On top of that, it would have all of Spider-Man's powers, plus all of Deku's other powers. Black Whip, Float, Danger Sense, Smokescreen, and Fajin. And there's still one quirk we don't know of yet. And even if this fusion doesn't amplify their physical strength using One For All, they would still be unbelievably strong thanks to Spider-Man's strength, which would just get more overpowered when you do add One For All on top of it. If you thought All Might's strength was dangerous, this fusion would be on another level.